Good morning, Oklahoma. We have a great show for you today on SUNUP. A corn disease has been showing up in fields, so is it now time to scout? We're also talking sorghum research, find out what questions scientists are trying to answer. And the middle of summer means it's time for the beloved tradition of 4-H State Roundup on the OSU campus. Grab your cup of coffee and enjoy a half-hour break from the heat dome because an all-new SUNUP starts right now. Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We're joined first thing this morning by Dr. Maira Duffeck, our OSU Extension field crops pathologist, and we're talking about some disease that's been spotted in corn. Maira, tell us kind of what you're seeing and where.
So in the last weeks, from 2 to 3 weeks, we start to see very frequently across the corn fields in Oklahoma the presence of a disease that's not unfamiliar for the corn growers, but is always good a reminder. That is southern rust. So southern rust is this disease that produces these pustules on top of the leaf. They are very bright orange when it's in the beginning and also turn to some red brick color, more dark color in the end of the season. So as you may see here in this leaf. So these pustules can be heavily dense packed in the leaf. Something interesting about this disease is that the pustules is going to be seen just on the upper side part of the leaf, but if you turn on the other side, we don't have the production of pustules. We just have this yellow halo that's produced because of the production of pustules in the upper part of the leaf, but not in the lower part of the leaf. And this is a good diagnostic characteristic because we have another disease that's also commonly observed in the corn fields across Oklahoma, that's common rust. And common rust produce pustules in both sides of the leaf. So you can have most of the time both of the disease together, but common rust is not going to affect yield or cause any yield decrease in your fields. But southern rust in the other way is very aggressive, is what we call an explosive disease, and if it's not managed correctly, it can take your field very quickly, especially in the conditions that we are observing right now in Oklahoma. That's temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit and also have relative humidity, especially like the heavy dews that we have in the morning accumulated in the leaves can also favor the conditions for the disease development.
So the important thing now is to get out and scout, I understand, and then are you seeing it in corn that's a little bit more mature or more this corn that's later planted or later varieties?
Yeah, so the growth stage for the corn when this disease reaches the field is very important because it's going to determine if the growers need to take action regarding management or not. So in Oklahoma, most of the fields that are planted early in the season, such as in March, April, they are in a growth stage right now that's past the time that we need to protect the leaves. They are already like in the senescence growth stage and the maturity growth stage. But we need to be concerned about the fields that are planted a little bit later because the growers could not get in the fields because of all the rain that we receive, or the double crop corn that's also in the fields right now. So in these fields, we need to be doing like a heavily scouting in these fields to determine if we need or not the application of foliar fungicides. For foliar fungicides, we know that the best time to apply these fungicides in the field is when the plants reach the R1 growth stage, that is when they're tasseling or silking, until R3, that's when they are milking. So from this R1 to R3, we recommend a fungicide application is always going to be beneficial in case you're seeing this in neighbors across the state or in your own field. Is going to be beneficial, but in case it passes that growth stage, we do not recommend application of fungicide anymore because it's not going to be profitable for the growers.
And you're asking for growers to, if they need some help identifying these, especially since the two, may be confused, right, the two diseases. What's the best route to do that and get samples to you?
Yes, so the growers can contact the extension educators in their counties. They are the best resource that they have to send the samples, and then these extension educators can easily deliver those samples to us at the plant disease diagnostic lab that we have at Oklahoma State University, or also to me directly. So they are the best point of contact that we can have for send sample to us in order to identify this in a correct way.
And we can just talk about it a few minutes today on SUNUP, but you've also put out some information online and on the ePest alert. People can read more and then they can better understand what they're looking for when they're out scouting.
Sure, so we did put, like I think 2 weeks ago, a post alert about this disease that has more information regarding management or how the growers can track the spread of the disease across the United States, because something important to mention here is that this disease is caused by a fungi that we call biotrophic. So this fungi doesn't survive in the residue as most commonly known pathogens that we have affecting the cornfield. So the spores of this disease need to blow out from other states to the state of Oklahoma every year. And then we can track the movement of those spores in a map that's available at the Crop Protection Network website, where the extensionists across the southern states especially, they keep tracking their fields, and they color the county where this disease was showing up. So we can be better prepared in the state of Oklahoma when, for example, Texas reported, Missouri, or other neighboring states. Then we can see what's the movement of this disease. And also in the Crop Protection Network website, we also have a table for the efficacy of the fungicides that are working right now to manage this disease. So these two are the best resources that we have to manage this disease and to keep track of the dispersion of these spores across the United States.
All right, Dr. Duffeck, thank you very much for the information. And for a link to that ePest alert and the other materials that Maira mentioned, just go to sunup.okstate.edu. Sorghum is popular to grow in Oklahoma, both for forage and for grain, but it can be tricky. OSU Extension Soil Nutrient Management Specialist Dr. Brian Arnall talks about the pros and cons of this important crop.
Now this time of the year we got a lot going on. You can see behind me our main crop, our early season is making it. I've seen some great sorghum out there. This is looking pretty good. If you look at just a bulk ground in our fertilized plots, we probably have over 100 bushel. I've seen some great sorghum across the state, all the way from Altus up to the Kansas border. But right now, our early season's basically made it. We have quite a bit of double crop in the ground. It's going, right? We're getting some heat. The early double crop is up. It's looking pretty good. We've got to be scouting on a regular basis for our insects though. We've got a fair amount of armyworms moving through. We found aphids here and there along with other insects. So a good scouting program is needed this time of the year. Along with scouting, as you know, it's starting to get hot and dry again. We had a beautiful spring, which has led to a lot of great forage production if we look at forage sorghums and sorghum sedans. But man, I've been spending the last couple of days in Altus, and it is getting hot and dry, and we're starting to see Oklahoma summer take impact. That means we got to be careful with our nitrates when it comes to forage sorghums and Johnson grass. As this crop starts stressing, as it gets hot and dry, anything that was growing well does have potential to throw high nitrates. Now, a high nitrate reading is a concern when it comes to cattle, primarily goats and sheep, also a little bit concerned, but it's primarily cattle. That nitrate will get into the blood system and will cause death. And so we need to be cautious, and we need to know where. If you think you have Johnson grass or forage sorghum that is stressed, I recommend you taking that sample, getting it cut from the ground up, taking it into your local county office. In that extension office, they'll be able to do a diphenyl drop test. Now that test is just putting liquid on the stalk to see if there's nitrate. It is a yes or no test. It will tell you if you have it in this plant or if not. One part of having nitrates is a little nitrates, not a concern. A lot of nitrate is a huge concern. So if you have any symptom of nitrate in that stock, we want to send it to the Oklahoma State Soil Water Forage Analytical Lab to run a nitrate test. Another concern we have with nitrates is that nitrates don't just go away if you've cut the crop. So I'd much rather see you take those samples on a standing crop if possible, because at least on a standing crop, if we get rain again, the crop can dilute and we could potentially see those nitrates come down. But once you cut that plant off and it's laying down, that nitrates are locked in the system. So if you bale it up, you won't know it until next spring when unfortunately you put a high nitrate bale out and now all of a sudden you have either abortions or some dead cattle. So make sure that you test before you hay if possible, but absolutely after you hay if there's any concerns. We're excited to be hosting the Sorghum Experience in Tacoma, Oklahoma on July 29th. This is really getting back to the roots of how we used to do extension field days. We're going to be getting down, looking at the plants, digging into the soil, just taking a look at a sorghum crop. On site, we have variety trials and fertility research. We'll be learning about scouting for our common insects in the sorghum crop. And of course, we're going to be splitting stalks and just learning as we do in that sorghum field. Again, that's July 29th, Tacoma, Oklahoma. And if you want more information about that event, you can find it at oklahomasorghum.com. For more information about sorghum management, nitrate, and prussic acid, go to the SUNUP website.
Hello, Oklahoma. This is your Mesonet Agricultural Outreach Specialist, here with your weekly Mesonet Weather Report. Just as a heads up, I have recently been married, so I am going by the name Emma White instead of my maiden name, Emma Safranek. But you may see it as one or both as I undergo this transition in the next several months. Temperatures have been quite warm this past week and uniform across the state. These trends are expected to continue into next week. As of July 22nd, triple digits have been reached in the western half of the state, but not yet in the eastern half. Little to no precipitation is expected in many parts of the states for the next several days. It seems the Oklahoma summer has finally hit its stride. As one could guess from the above statements, the Cattle Comfort Index is also quite high. As shown in this map from Wednesday, July 23rd, the maximum Cattle Comfort Index for that day is in heat danger across the state. The daily water demand is fairly uniform, as this map for July 22nd shows, indicating again the hot temperatures the entire state is facing. Nevertheless, the high Cattle Comfort Index, though uniform, is still quite high, so this will lead to a significant water demand for the cattle, with purple shading even appearing on the eastern side of the state. These trends from this past week are expected to continue even into next week, as the hot and dry conditions will be hanging around. On the flip side, hotter and drier conditions could help slow pecan scab hour accumulation. As you can see on this 3-year comparison graph from Stillwater, 2025 currently has accumulated more pecan scab hours than previous years, likely due to the higher relative humidity in 2025. This trend is similar at other locations around the state. However, with less humid conditions predicted for this next week, pecan scab hour accumulation will likely slow. Slower accumulation means a longer time between spraying applications. However, remember that this product is a tool, so does not replace the best judgment of the growers. Gary McManus is up next with your state climatology report.
Thanks, Emma, and good morning, everyone. Now, it's been a while since I've talked to you, but a lot's happened since then. We got a lot of rain, and then it got hot again, and we actually have some color on the drought monitor map for the first time since early June. Let's get right to that new map and show you where it's at. Now, I say new map, but this has actually been here for a couple of weeks, and it's just 1.24% of the state, so a little tiny area down in southwest Oklahoma, hardly worth mentioning unless you're down in that region. Again, it's just abnormally dry conditions, so not drought just yet, but it does show an area that might go into drought, that D1 moderate drought, if they don't get rainfall soon. And this shows you why. So up to 2 weeks and even as many as 37 days consecutively without at least a quarter inch of rain in a single day out there in that spot across far southwest Oklahoma. But much of the state, 10 to 20 days. So this is something to watch for as we get a dry spell in the hot summer of Oklahoma. we could see that drought come back once again pretty quickly if we're not careful. Now, what's that little spot of color come from? Well, if you look at the 60-day rainfall map from the Oklahoma Mesonet, lots of good colors on here, at least the reds, purples, and those. But if you get down there in southwest Oklahoma, 3 to 5 inches, so not too great for that region. Now we have the western panhandle, Kenton, less than 4 inches, or 4 inches or less, so that region is a little bit more used to that. And we can see that on the percent of normal rainfall map, again for that same 60-day period. Southwest Oklahoma, basically 50% of normal or less over that last 2 months. So that's a region, again, when you're in the heat of the summer, if you start to lose that rainfall, those dry conditions can come back pretty quickly and develop into drought. So again, something we are watching closely. So we're finally in that heat of summer, rainfall shut off, so we are watching those select few areas for possible drought development. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
It's that time in the show where we check in on the grain markets with our OSU agriculture economist, Dr. John Michael Riley. And John Michael, let's briefly talk wheat harvest. You know, it's about 98% finished, so talk what producers are seeing as we're kind of wrapping everything up.
Right, we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. In fact, the train's almost coming out of that tunnel. For the most part, it's, still looking good.
Yeah.
Definitely the crop has deteriorated as the season has, the harvest season kind of continued to lag on. We dropped off in about 2 to 3 bushels per acre through late June. Now we're another 2 to 3 bushels below that. So somewhere in the mid 50s overall state average is what we're looking, what we're expecting. So overall, it's still been a good harvest, but just not what we probably could have been had the rains not continued to fall.
Yeah, and those rains, keeping it's really, the crop suffered a little bit too as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, dropped off, overall about 4 to 6 bushels per acre. That's state average, so some individuals probably worse than others. But overall, it certainly, I would say this, it certainly could have been worse given the level of rainfall that we received over the heavy harvest period.
So let's switch to summer crops right now. What are you hearing in regards to just how prices are looking for those 3 commodity crops that we have?
Well, unfortunately, still lots of pressure in our summer crop grain markets, oilseed markets. Started to see a little bit of a bump toward the end of last week. Some news of tremendous heat, some stress on the crop. Also, just some political news coming through that was providing some lift. And all of that came to stop over the weekend. We got some rains across most of the Corn Belt through the weekend. Still some pressure there, I think, but those rains did provide some pressure as we started this week, and that's continuing as we're having our conversation right now.
And so with those rains, that was primarily not really in Oklahoma, but that was more in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, like in Ohio as well, right?
Yeah, this is more just me speaking nationally about the corn crop across the Corn Belt. Some rains fell over the weekend, and that reduced that possibility of continued stress. We're still in this critical growing stage, so that's still going to be something that the market's going to monitor. But the rains over the weekend kind of did away with all of that upward momentum that we were seeing at the end of last week.
What about cotton?
Cotton's doing a similar story. Overall, nationally, all of our summer crops are looking really good. Good to excellent ratings are very high. Crop progress is pretty much on track. Obviously not here in the state. Here in the state, we're about 5 to 8 percentage points behind where we typically are at because of all those rains that we received. But nationally, everything's kind of opposite of that. It's looking really good, and that's providing some pressure. No different for cotton. We're also seeing some lower oil prices. The good news is that the dollar is weakening a little bit, which sometimes provides a little bit of a boost. But for the most part, cotton's a similar story to all of our other summer crops.
So that's nationally. How are prices looking for those summer crops in the state?
Well, again, similar story, some pressure there. But spoke in the spring about basis. That's continuing to be something I'm monitoring. We've got tremendous weakness in basis for soybeans. 50 cents to $1 below where we typically are at with basis for soybeans, much weaker than usual. That's continuing to be an issue. Not nearly as bad with corn. We're right around 25 to 50 cents below average with regard to basis. So corn prices in the state are high 3s, low 4s. Soybean prices low 9s to mid 9s for the most part with regard to those two crops. Cotton prices somewhere in that 65 to 70 cent range, kind of hovering around 67 cents a pound.
All right, thanks, John Michael. Dr. John Michael Riley, OSU agriculture economist here at Oklahoma State University.
It's that time of year for the 2025 Women in Agriculture Conference. The conference will be August 7th at the Hilton Garden Inn in Edmond. Join other women in agriculture and small businesses for a day of networking and learning. Topics will include how to write a grant, make a will or trust, and using AI and social media to build your brand. The registration fee is $100. For more information, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is a very problematic and undesirable grass that we call foxtail. And it's interesting that this spring and summer in Oklahoma, as we've had an unusually high amount of moisture for the most part, and some unseasonably cooler temperatures up until July, that it seemed to be pretty favorable conditions for foxtail to actually be more competitive than Bermuda grass or some seeded in improved forages in a lot of cases. And we actually taped today in a lot that was set back with a light dose of Roundup in April. We have a Bermuda grass stand underneath this. We came in and no-tilled some sorghum sudan, followed that up with an application of 2,4-D in later May. And actually, in the past 6 weeks, we have seen foxtail overtake this and actually outcompete Bermuda grass and the sorghum sudan that was seeded in. So what are we talking about when we get into foxtail? And we address some of the ways to try to control it. And I would begin this by just saying it looks like a fairly cumbersome process. We have got a grass that goes to seed annually. We identify it by these bushy foxtail looking seed heads. It's a very populated, very dense seed head, and we anticipate there's probably a pretty healthy dose of seed built up in our soils. And so the most likely control tactic we're going to take is a long-term approach of using herbicides that are selective to foxtail, probably some tillage, and potentially even some mowing. One thing I would say about mowing it off, if we come in and mow down this stuff that's here right now, it will come back, make another seed head on a much shorter stalk. Mowing alone is not likely to be that successful. We're going to have to incorporate in some tillage, some herbicides, and take a look at a long-term plan here to potentially exhaust the seed bed that's setting in the soil. One of the issues, we say it is a grass, therefore normal broadleaf weed applications we would do on pastures is not going to kill this particular grass. And so I would encourage producers, inspect your pastures, see if you've got an issue. If you got a small infestation, you can probably spot treat it. If you get into pastures, hay meadows, entire lots that are overtaken with foxtail, you may need to renovate the entire pasture in order to get it under control. Take a look at your hay and your hay meadows. Before you feed a lot of hay, see how much infestation of foxtail there is in it. Every time you feed this, you are potentially putting out seed in all the areas that this is fed as hay. Final thing, if you've got cattle that are grazing it, beware. These little seeds are going to be in their feet, they're going to be in their hair coat, they're possibly going to pass through their digestive system. That process could take 2 to 3 days, but that seed is going to come out the other side viable and potentially going to go to seed on you later. I hope you don't have any foxtail, but if you do, it is something that is good to get under control and problematic to have in pastures and hays. Hope this helps, and as always, thanks for joining us on Cow-Calf Corner.
OSU Extension's popular Ranchers Thursday Lunchtime series is back. Join the OSU beef cattle experts, experienced ranchers, and scientists to learn and share production, management, and marketing tips. The Zoom webinars are all on Thursdays at noon, and they're free, but you do need to register so you can receive the Zoom link and more details. Just scan the QR code on your screen, contact your county extension office, or go to the SUNUP website for a direct link to registration. Finally today, it is state 4-H Roundup time on the OSU campus, where 4-Hers from around the state descend on the university for contests, workshops, and of course, plenty of fun. And this year, OSU's biggest celebrity is along for the ride.
Yeah, so this is the 104th State 4-H Roundup. The event officially started today at 12:30. Tonight we have our Pete's Premiere. At Pete's Premiere we have different organizations and different departments across campus, different organizations, community partners that set up booths, and our kids get to go around to the different booths and learn about those organizations and those departments and colleges on campus.
I believe there's the entomology booth again this year. I love getting to see those. Last year I know they had the bugs out and they let you crawl on your arm. It was really cool.
There we go. She's a little heavy, but don't tell her that.
It's a lot of fun. Most of these booths are interactive, so the kids like to come and interact at the booth and do something.
Oh my gosh, she's crawling on my arm. So we are doing a Beyond Ready signing day and having our 4-Hers that are graduating out of the 4-H program. They are signing on to their future endeavors, and they've been telling me all about what they're doing. So it's really exciting to see how ready they are for their futures, and 4-H has prepared them for that.
I mean, in everything I do, I can see a part of 4-H. I go to football, meet people that I've already known from 4-H. I mean, just that people meeting skill and speaking, public speaking. I'm just so, it's almost first nature to me now.
All of the projects that they've done in 4-H have provided them with life skills in addition to helping them find their spark of what they're interested in, what they want to pursue.
In 4-H, we want our youth to be, we like to say that we prepare our youth to be beyond ready.
Just these leadership qualities and community service that you do just really helps you learn like just other skills you can use pretty much anywhere in life.
And many are practicing leadership today. They are doing community service projects, and that's making them not just ready, but beyond ready.
That'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website, follow us on social media, and stream us anytime at youtube.com/SUNUPTV. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.